Yay,
All right,
computers.
MSDOSX, welcome back. We got Jordan lecturing today, so have fun.
Yeah, help me if I do something stupid.
That's what I'm here for.
Okay, so you've seen view controllers. There are a few view controllers that you see quite a lot throughout basically every Apple standard application. So we're going to talk about a few of those today. Hello, Brad. Okay. So there's a lot of stuff that you can get basically for free from the UI view controller system. So UI tab bar controller is something instantly recognizable. You've done a homework assignment that uses this. You get a tab bar at the bottom of your screen. It's not like Firefox tabs where you can move them around in some user configurable manner. They're best for different views. I can't English. They're best for different views that aren't directly connected somehow. So if you look at the clock application, you have a world clock tab, an alarm tab, a stopwatch tab, and a timer tab. They're all connected logically. They all belong in the clock application, but they're not different views on the same data. They're different features of the same application. So you can see that you have a whole bunch of alarms on this tab. You have a whole bunch of clocks on this tab. They're completely different. You can have a timer or an alarm. So what you do when you have a UI tab bar controller is set up a bunch of individual view controllers tied to each tab. They're contained views. The system takes care of drawing the tab bar for you. You give it icons and text, and in return you get a system that's you get a screen that's smaller that you can't fit everything. You can't. Bleh. You get a display that's not the full screen size. It cuts off some pixels down here for the tab bar. So you're effectively writing something that would run full screen except smaller, and you can switch out between a bunch of them.
One nice thing that Interface Builder lets you do, if you're designing your view as an Interface Builder, it allows you to simulate the tab bar at the bottom, so that way you can, in laying out your views, you can take into account the fact that you're going to lose those 44 pixels at the bottom for the tab bar. So that makes it really easy for you to anticipate losing that 44 pixels at the bottom for the tab bar.
Right. So moral of the story being, don't take an already designed view and drop it in without taking that into account. So it gives you, as you can see, an array of view controllers that you can set, each of which can access this object here. The tab bar contains a bunch of tab bar item objects. You can set, in code, you can set the icon, the text. You can set this little badge here. So for example, if you were writing a to-do application or like Pocket Informant is an app that I've seen that does this, a calendar, tasks, all-in-one personal information manager. You might have a tab for calendar and a tab for tasks, and you might want to list, badge the tab with how many tasks you have due on a given day. So you see this in use on, for example, the iPod app. You can access playlists or buy artists or buy album. When you're using the iPod app, there's also a UI navigation controller that lets you drill down. When you access your music by artist or by album, you get a list that you can tap on members of. You can. What? This is not working correctly. Anyway, so you can see an example of this in the settings application, which is a tremendous, massive agglomeration of different application settings. If you scroll all the way down, there's a settings screen that you can tap into for every application on your device that's decided to provide.
I worked a little bit with settings over the summer and counted about 200 or 300 different screens on the entire settings application. It's rather large.
Yep. So if you were to tap the general button down here, you'd get a slide in from the right animation, and you get this display here. You can keep tapping further in. You can hit the back button up here, which automatically gets populated with the title of the page that's displaying, and all the way back to the beginning. So the system provides you with a navigation bar. The navigation bar has objects associated with it like the tab bar does. The tab bar, you can access every item in an array. The navigation bar, you can access left buttons and right buttons and the text itself. You can also do, you can select from an array of, or a list of predefined button types that you can put up here. So you might want a plus button or a refresh button if you have some sort of standard behavior that you want to provide. So if you were to tap Barack Obama's contact entry, I'm presuming that's not his phone number, you'd push this, again, another small view controller, or another small view and associated view controller onto the screen. It automatically generates the back button for you. You tap it. The navigation controller property associated with a view controller lets you, from wherever you are, go and access this containing view controller. And it has some, there are some useful methods on the UI navigation controller object that you can call. There's, you can push a view controller from your current location. So if you're in a list and you tap an element in a table, we'll talk about those in a little bit, you'd have some sort of handler. So you tap on a row in the table. You have code that responds to somebody tapped on row number 3, for example, and then your response says, okay, row number 3 is the album, I don't know, Yellow Submarine by the Beatles. So you push another view controller associated with that particular bit of data. And similarly, you can pop a view controller. It's just like a stack, pushing things on, popping things off. And nice sliding animations. If you pop it, it goes away. So you can, this entire thing up here is a navigation item. You can access it, set buttons. If you poke around in the documentation, you'll get a list of all the predefined things you can set up here. You can also, there are some cases where this needs to be a back button. There's other cases where it needs to be a square button like on the right. One thing that you generally want to be careful of if you're designing something that has statically defined view names. For example, in this example, you have a screen that's all contacts. This title up here, all contacts, is not defined. It's not generated. It's something that you yourself have decided to come up with. When you tap a button, the all contacts title will appear here in small text. And if your original parent view controller had too long of a name, it will appear as, for example, all contacts ... So that can look ugly. That's something to consider.
And a way around that is so that we can any view controller can access this navigation item by just calling the navigation item method. And then once you have a navigation item, there are actually 3 different buttons you can set. You can set the left button, the right button, and then the back button. The back button is a little bit strange. It doesn't appear quite where you would expect it to appear. The back button only appears if some other view controller has been pushed on top, and it's the back button to get back to that view controller. So if you had a title that's really long, but you still want to have a back button that doesn't have ... in it, you can create your own custom back button, assign it to that view controller, so that way when you drill down another level and you want to go back, you can have a reasonably titled button.
Right.
And you'll see, you'll get to play with this in a few weeks when we talk about table views. The other thing worth noting about navigation controllers is that you often see them with these table interfaces. They don't need to be. A navigation controller just manages a stack of arbitrary UI view controllers, so they can be whatever view controller you want. You can push any other view controller on. You can pop any other one off. It's like I said, you'll typically see them with table views, and we'll talk about table views next week. But they can be any view controller you want.
So these view controllers are all well and good if you're developing for an iPhone or an iPod Touch because you have a very small screen. You only want to have one thing going on at once. iPads, you have 1024 by 768 pixels to work with. Check back on March 7th to see if that's different.
At least until March 7th.
Yes. So you've got more room on a screen that big. You can fit a couple of things on simultaneously. So you can on iPad, not on anything else. You'll get in trouble. Create a split pane system where on the left you can choose from things on the left and then drill down in them on the right without having to, in memory, like in your memory as an end user, remember, okay, what did I just tap? Where am I? So if you're in the Settings app, you can tap your way through the options on the left, and instead of sliding in and replacing the entire screen, you're able to see what's going on at once. So it's a bit more like what you're used to on a computer. So this also has a view controllers property, except you're not allowed to pass in an array of arbitrary length. You can't have you can have 5 tab bar items, but you can't have 5 split view items. If you're doing these programmatically, be aware the first element is on the left to right. There's a delegate protocol which you can look up for responding to events and callbacks and so on. So there's also the idea of having something pop up. If you've ever used an iOS device in Berkeley and tried to connect to AirBears, you'll be very familiar with this because every few seconds a little display will pop up saying, "Hi, you're connected to AirBears. Tap here to log in and type in your Telnet ID and password and all that." So that's a modal controller. They can slide up. You can use other animations like a cube rotating type animation, or a single sheet of paper rotating rather. You can dissolve in. You get a bevy of pretty animations. So you can present a modal view controller. Just pass in a view controller wherever you'd like. It'll pop up, and you can dismiss it. These are pretty simple on iOS, or on iPhone rather, because you have a very small screen. On iPad, there are a few different kinds of modal controllers that you can use. If you play around with the Mail application on an iPad, for example, you can, in some cases, you can pop up something in the center of the screen that's roughly proportional to a display on iPhone. You can pop up something that takes up most of the screen, but has margins around it, so it's clear you're working with a subview. Those are pop-up controls?
Well, there's a separate class on iPad that's available called pop-up view controllers that just are views that just appear arbitrarily on screen. It's worth noting that modal UI there is no class UI mobile view controller. A modal view controller is more of a conceptual idea that there's some view controller that's currently taking command of the user's attention, and you can't do anything else until it disappears. So, the example I have here is in Safari. If you want to open up your bookmarks, you can't do anything with Safari until you've chosen a bookmark or made that bookmarks panel go away. So a modal, it's just an arbitrary view controller that you can say, make this view controller command the user's attention. Once we're done with it, it goes away, then they go back to what they were doing.
So I mentioned these a little bit earlier. You can also handle, and Kevin said we're going to go into detail on these in a week or so, but you can also handle tables with some level of intelligence beyond, okay, here's a table object and there's stuff in it. One thing that you might see is this little row of letters on the right-hand side. That's automatically generated based on the contents of your table. So if you were to just populate a table with these elements, you would, instead of having this nice search icon A through Z and then hash icon, you would get something that had a G up here, a J over there, and an O at the bottom, spaced out and looking kind of nasty. So you can pass in a list of things that you'd like to appear here, and what was I going to say?
Well, we'll talk in a lot more detail about table view controllers next week. Table view controllers are probably one of the most important view controllers on iOS. I can very rarely think of an application that does not use one at some point, or something that resembles a table view controller. So they're very important to talk about, but we'll talk about those next week. We're going to talk about events next week.
Well, that's it for this week.
Any questions? Okay. So there's no lab today, but there will be one on Tuesday.
Yep.
Thursday?
Or sorry, today's Tuesday. Thursday.
One of those things.
English.
Okay.